Hey, fellow dungeon masters! Today we are going to tackle something that quietly torpedoes a ton of investigation games, the murder scene itself. And look, we're not talking about the whole mystery from start to finish, we're zeroing in on that crucial first step, just building the scene.
So here's the thing. Most D&D murder scenes, they fail before a single die even hits the table. And it's not because the mystery is too hard or the villain is too smart, it's because the scene itself just isn't built to support actual investigation gameplay.
So let's fix that. We're going to start with the core problem. Then, we'll lay a solid foundation by figuring out the scene's purpose and method. After that, we'll dive into what I call the 3 tiers of evidence, talk about designing the actual player experience, and finally, we'll treat the crime scene like a ticking clock.
Okay, first things first, let's get right to the biggest mistake I see DMs make all the time.
A murder scene cannot exist just for the sake of being investigated. It has to have a job to do. Its entire reason for being is to change the direction of the game. If your players can walk out of that room and nothing has fundamentally shifted, if they don't have a new goal, a new location, a new suspect, then the scene was just window dressing, no matter how many cool details you threw in.
So how do we make sure our scene has a purpose? Well, we start by building the foundation. And that comes down to 2 key decisions you have to make right at the beginning. Step 1. Before you even start thinking about the body or the clues or the blood spatter, you have to answer one question. What is this scene for? What is its narrative job? You know, is its main goal to point the players toward a pretty obvious suspect? Or is it maybe to hint at a much wider conspiracy they didn't even know existed? Maybe the whole point is just to establish a sense of real danger and urgency. Or hey, maybe it's even there to misdirect them without actually lying to them, of course. All right, step 2, and this one is a real game changer. You have to separate the cause of death from the method of its delivery. So many of us treat these as the same thing, but they are absolutely not. The cause is what killed them. The method is how that killer got it done. For instance, the cause of death could be poison. Simple enough, but the method? A ritual wine blessing that everyone in the room took part in. Or how about this? The cause of death is necrotic damage. The method? A delayed curse that was secretly tied to a tiny, mundane wound the victim got days ago. See? This simple trick instantly creates depth. It means your players can be right about one part and totally wrong about the other, which creates momentum instead of just hitting a brick wall. Okay, so we've got our purpose and our method. Now we can actually start placing the evidence. But wait, don't just scatter a bunch of random clues around the room. You need to think in 3 distinct tiers. Every single solid D&D murder scene should have these 3 kinds of evidence. And I don't mean 3 clues, I mean 3 whole categories of clues. The first one is physical evidence. This is the stuff you can see and touch. It's the wounds on the body, the placement of the blood, the overturned chair, the signs of a struggle, or maybe the creepy lack of one. This is where your players are going to be using their perception, investigation, and medicine skills. Number 2 is contextual evidence. This isn't about what is there, it's about what the scene implies about timing and behavior. Was the victim in the middle of writing a letter? Were they preparing a meal for 1 or for 2? This is the stuff that gets your players asking questions, trying to piece together a timeline, and really role-playing their deduction. And tier 3 is magical evidence. Now listen closely, this is absolutely crucial. This is not a cast detect magic and solve the case button. In fact, it should be the opposite. It's things like faint residual effects, magically suppressed auras, or maybe a protection spell that should be active but isn't. Magic in a murder scene should complicate things and add new questions, not just hand over the answer. So, we've designed the scene, we've layered in our evidence, now we need to shift our focus to the player experience. Because let me tell you, an investigation where the players find everything perfectly is actually a really boring investigation. This step is so important, and it's one that most DMs totally ignore. Before your players even enter the room, you need to decide what they are probably going to miss. That's right, plan for an imperfect investigation. Intentionally include one little detail that's easy to overlook. Design one conclusion that seems super obvious on the surface, but is actually incomplete. And craft one truth that will only snap into focus when they combine 2 or 3 other clues later on. This isn't about being tricky, it's about realism. A scene where everything is found and understood immediately just feels fake. The same logic applies to skill checks. Please, stop designing clues that are just pass or fail, found or not found. It's so much more interesting to design for tiered success. For any given check, ask yourself, what does a low roll tell them? What does an average roll suggest? And what does a great roll totally confirm? Okay, let's say they're investigating a weird wound. A low investigation roll might only reveal, you're pretty sure this wasn't made by a sword or a dagger. A medium roll might get them, the tissue damage almost looks like magical decay. And a high roll? That gets in the jackpot. You recognize this. It matches a rare spell that requires the caster to have had prior physical contact with the victim. Now every single roll, even the failures, gives them useful information and pushes the story forward.
All right, we're at our last major principle, and it's a big one. You have to remember that your crime scene is not a museum exhibit frozen in time. It is a ticking clock.
So, step 6. Let the scene tell its lies. But don't let it stay that way forever. The second your players leave that room for the first time, the scene should start to change.
Physical evidence starts to decay. Witnesses get nervous and start talking, or maybe they get threatened and clam up. The City Watch finally shows up and tramples all over everything. That faint magical aura they detected, it's fading fast. Just design 1 or 2 small changes that happen after their first visit. It creates this fantastic pressure and reinforces that time is of the essence.
And all of this really leads to one final thought. A great murder scene isn't about hiding information from your players. It's about presenting the truth to them in fragments, in confusing pieces, and then trusting that they will be the ones to assemble it into something that makes sense. You have to design the scene to be understood over time, not solved on the spot, because that's where all the tension and all the fun really lives.
Once you've got this down, you can start building on it, right? You can learn how to design those critical clues players just can't miss without feeling like you're railroading them. You can figure out how to use red herrings to create twists instead of just wasting everyone's time. But every compelling, memorable investigation starts right here with a well-designed scene.